Hello, everyone, and welcome to my RTI/MTSS project presentation. My name is India Garcia, and I'm going to review the questions for this project and then answer them individually. All right, let's start with the first one. So, what is the RTI or MTSS intervention in your own words? So, RTI is known as the response to intervention. It is a multi tiered system used to identify students who are struggling in general education classes. The three tiers in this approach provide students with the different levels of support they need to succeed academically. MTSS is the multi tiered system of supports. This framework is similar to RTI as it identifies and supports systems in the class through a tiered system. However, it is a comprehensive model that focuses on the entire child, including tracking their attendance and looking at their behavioral, social emotional, and academic needs. This may include designing a behavioral plan, which is designed to improve or to replace negative behaviors by teaching and rewarding the student with positive behaviors. All right, next question. What has been my experience with RTI or MTSS this semester? So, I haven't had too much experience specifically working directly with the teachers providing the RTI intervention, since that's what they use at my school. But I have observed how my supervisor gives recommendations to teachers on how to provide models for articulation or explain how some speech sounds are not appropriate to target based on based on the student's age. I've also attended meetings with my supervisor when she works with the school psychologist and MTSS coordinator or RTI coordinator. When they work together, they keep track of all the different students in the Tier 3 intervention who will need evaluations to determine if they're eligible for IEP services. So they're moving on from RTI to IEP services, but they must check first the eligibility requirements, which they need to get evaluations for first. A lot of work has been done between the three of them working so hard together, and it shows me that it takes a whole team of professionals to get this all done. One specific example of working with a student was with the fourth grader who was in the Tier 3 intervention, and they were referred for a comprehensive evaluation for speech specifically. After completing the assessments and collecting a language sample with my supervisor, she and I determined that this student would not qualify for speech services under an IEP. Now, they may receive academic support to help them based on their scores, but that'll be for a team decision when they come together. And this student specifically showed that they would not qualify for services because they did so well completing all the, all of the assessments. Another student that I worked with was a third grader. So they had qualified for speech services under figurative language, but after attending speech therapy, they quickly mastered their goals and they demonstrated that they had the ability to succeed academically. So they mastered it. They had another RDR intervention team meeting to show that this student would no longer qualify for services, and they had graduated because they were no longer eligible. So they show that they're able to succeed and they no longer need specialized speech intervention from an SLP. So, what are some of the pros and cons I've experienced or heard regarding RTI or MTSS? The pros of RTI include how an SLP can teach educators on how to model speech sounds or create packets to target expressive and receptive language areas. So that's one pro of it. Another pro is SLPs can inform teachers that they should wait to provide interventions for communication skills that are not currently appropriate for the child. So let's say a kindergarten student is in class and the teacher says to an SLP, "Oh, how do you think about us? Uh, how do you think about us doing interventions for the R sound?" The SLP would come in and say, like, "No, that's not appropriate at this time. Well, let's try to check in when they're in first grade at the end of that and see if they've got if they obtain that speech sound, or maybe let's look into more interventions after that point." But in kindergarten, that would not be appropriate for that student. So, some of the cons include teachers are the ones doing the interventions. So RTI and MTSS, these are teacher-based interventions, but they're not trained to provide specialized instruction like an SLP in speech therapy. So it can be hard to expect them to do all the work perfectly because they don't have the same training and education as a speech therapist. So this may also lead into this other con. Some teachers may track data incorrectly since they don't have the experience of an SLP that we have, such as making notes on the level of cueing and providing the consistency that students receive in speech therapy. So it's not to say that all educators cannot do this intervention work correctly. It's just to say that not all teachers have the same fidelity that SLP will have with tracking the data, making notes on their cueing, making notes on how the student may need adjustments, going from maybe they're on the sentence level, but they're showing a whole lot of difficulties there, and maybe we need to bring it back. Maybe we should bring it back to the phrase level, try it at that level, and then see if we can to progress to the next one. Okay, here's another. Why is the SLP an important part of the RTI or MTSS process? So, it's important for an SLP to be involved in the RTI process because we provide teachers with the strategies and knowledge that are learned through our specialized training. So, teachers are expected to implement speech therapy strategies with their students when it's not their expertise. Not to say that all teachers can't, but they are not trained like speech language pathologists. So, while some teachers may do well in providing these supports, not all educators may know how to deliver these interventions or track data the way an SLP would. For those that are newer to this process, an SLP can break down the models and give resources to that teacher. For example, a teacher has a student in Tier 2 working on the S speech sound. An SLP can provide the teacher with where they'd start at with isolation level. Then they would explain how you would go to the syllable, then word, all the way up to conversational level. The SLP may also provide videos and materials to that teacher to make it more fun and engaging for that student and the teacher involved. And last question here. What is the difference between RTI or MTSS and an IEP? So, the difference between RTI and an IEP is the intervention versus specifically designed instruction. So, the tiers of intervention are given by an individual that does not have the technical expertise on speech and language. This would be the teachers. Although they do teach students all the academics like math, science, literature, all those different areas, they don't have the same teaching as in communication and speech sciences. So, an IEP is specifically designed instruction for a specific disorder, such as articulation, expressive or receptive language, or fluency. An SLP has the knowledge and evidence-based practice, expertise, and training to work with students on specific communication goals. With an IEP, the SLP is working to close the gaps that are impacting the student's academic performance. This can include their speech intelligibility, comprehending and answering questions, or any of the social abilities like speaking with others fluently or with confidence. So, this is how an SLP is vital to the RTI or MTSS process and also an IEP. And I hope you enjoyed watching the video and listening to my answers. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.